Never die. Never die.
Fuck you.
Fuck, it is 4:52 in the morning. You might be wondering, why am I doing this podcast so early? Why am I up so early? Well, you know what? I got someone on here. But before I get into that, I want to thank Blackstone Labs for sponsoring me, sponsoring this podcast, and you can get 20% off your entire order. Look, if you're trying to get jacked, you're trying to get shredded, you're trying to put on muscle, you're trying to get gains, whatever it is you want to do with your body, guess what? Blackstone Labs can help you. 20% off your entire order, blackstonelabs.com. B2the4thpower checkout and get yourself hooked up. Also, to CH Concrete, serving the San Francisco Bay Area. That is CH Concrete, serving the San Francisco Bay Area. Patios, walkways, driveways, foundations, sidewalks. Look, if you want to cement your front yard, you want to cement your backyard, they will do it for you. No job too big, no job too small. Commercial, residential, does not matter. That is CH Concrete, serving the San Francisco Bay Area. All their information in the bottom, in the notes. Check them the fuck out. Mention Angry Dad and get a free estimate. Now, like I said, this is the most famous person I know. And let me tell you something right now. The things that this person has done, it blows my mind, because I don't know how you go along doing any of this stuff, because like I said, it's not in my realm, it's not in my things, and you know, it takes a lot of motivation and passion. And so let my guest introduce himself.
I am writer-director Jed Bryan. I'm known for the found footage horror film Unlisted Owner. And thanks so much for having me on the podcast and getting up this early to be able to do it with me.
No. Like I say, if you can make a movie, I can get up early. You know what I'm saying? and that's the thing too, is like, you know, to create a movie and to get it on Amazon, to get it on DVD, Blu-ray, to do these tours that you're doing, it takes the kind of passion that I want on this podcast, because I'm always telling people to chase their dreams, reach their goals, do whatever it takes. And I can only imagine that's what it takes to do this.
Yeah, you got to definitely keep your eye on the ball and just stay focused, because when you're making a film, I mean, it's not all, you know, hunky-dory all the time. I mean, you're going to run into bumps in the road. Things aren't going to go right while you're shooting. And, you know, once you get done shooting and you start into the editing process, it's a whole nother animal. And then once you get that done, then you got to try to get it out there for people to see it. And then, you know, you got to deal with all that. And it's just, you know, you just got to keep pushing, and you got to have a thick skin, because if you don't have a thick skin, can't take criticism, then it'll be a rough time for you.
I could imagine, because, you know, that's the thing about life, is if you don't have a thick skin, you'll never get anything done. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Everything will shut you down. And I can only, like I said, just like you said, with criticism, with people in this world that are hitting you with just negative vibes, I can only imagine how many times you would have to just hear what somebody has to say, because you just need to get a different opinion. But the thing is, you know, everyone's view of something is different. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So what would be the ways that you would just tackle that?
Well, you got to take it with a grain of salt. And sometimes people, you know, whenever they see, you know, especially for film, like if they watch your film and they don't like it, and, you know, I mean, there's people that are flat out say, you know, your movie's the worst movie I've ever seen. And I'm like, yeah, I imagine you've probably seen a lot worse stuff than mine, but, you know, you just got to take it with a grain of salt. But at the same time, you know, there's people out there that, you know, have, you know, opinions, and they kind of tell you like what they think, and sometimes you got to put yourself in their shoes, like, okay, well, maybe I see what you're saying there, but, you know, you just can't let it get to you. And I mean, and it's really hard with a movie, because it is like you put everything into it, you know, especially when you write, direct it, and you also act in it, like I did for Unlisted Owner. You know, that's your baby. You worked really hard. I mean, it was my debut film, but, you know, at the same time, you just got to look at it this way, especially with my film. I mean, it's a horror film, so half the people in the world don't like horror, and then it's found footage on top of that, and like another half of the horror people do not like found footage. So, you know, you kind of got to look at it that way right off the bat. So you just got to look at, you know, there's not going to be a movie out there that's perfect for everybody. I mean, there's people out there that don't like Star Wars. I mean, there's people out there that don't like, you know, Indiana Jones, Wizard of Oz, or anything like that, you know. So everybody has their own opinions on films, and you just kind of have to have that mindset whenever you first go into it.
Yeah, no, I can clearly, you know what I'm saying, because it's just so crazy. You know, I want to get into why you started to do this movie. You know what I'm saying? What was the kicking point? What was the tipping point that was like, I need to do this. I don't care. This is happening.
Well, ever since I was a kid, I've always loved like movies in general, and especially I've always been drawn to like horror. And like I used to watch King Kong versus Godzilla, House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price, classic monster movies. And it wasn't until I watched Eli Roth's Hostel that I was like, wow, this film is like, it's like real life horror. There's no like monsters or anything like that. It's like the people are the scary part. And it really got me to thinking about, like what scares me. And one thing that whenever I was younger, especially always scared me is peer pressure. I don't drink. I've never been drunk in my life. And, and for me to write a script that centers around, a group of friends that, get like Gavin, because in the film you have Gavin, Tyler, and then me and Griffin, and there's four of us, and we used to be best friends in this movie. We were best friends back in the day, but then me and Griffin have girlfriends now that are kind of dragging down the fun level. So Tyler and Gavin are being complete jerks to us, and they're trying to make us choose, okay, are we going to stay with these girls, or are we going to ditch them and, go back to the way it was before, and that's the thing. They keep ramping up throughout the movie, doing pranks and stupid stuff to get on our girlfriends' nerves for us to make a decision on which way we're going to go. And, when you watch the movie, you see everything just keeps getting escalated. And, and the peer pressure keeps building and building and building from, we're going to go out road tripping. Now we're going to go into a cemetery, and now we're going to possibly break into a crime scene. Like, just that whole peer pressure thing just always kind of, freaked me out. Especially, you have a friend that's drunk, breaks into an active crime scene. Okay, do you go in and get him, or do you just leave before the cop gets back? Like, stuff like that. It just kind of always kind of got to me. So that was kind of like the premise behind Unlisted Owner as far as getting it written.
It's funny that you say that, because that just kind of changes my thought process of the movie. Because I watched the movie, I own the movie, I even got a signed copy from what you recommend everyone getting, at least a copy, going down to Amazon, doing a review, all that stuff. But just you saying that kind of like triggers. I'm like, I did something I didn't realize. To me, like I said, as a person who I'm not a huge horror person. I like horror movies. I watch them here and there. I'm more of an action guy. But the thing is like, just hearing that little bit of a backside of thought process, it makes my viewpoint of the movie change a little bit, because I'm like, that's fucking right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because those are real things that people really do.
Mm-hmm.
And I could only tell you how many times I was peer pressured by my friends to do some ridiculous ass shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it does hit another level there.
Yeah, it really is a movie about, you have the horror element, but to get to that horror element, you have these group of friends that lead you on a journey of, showing you like how, peer pressure and, bullying and all that stuff, kind of affects people, and, what negative can come out of it, especially in a situation where, you get these guys that are so eccentric that they're willing to break into a crime scene that, they supposedly have caught the killer, and, and just keeps escalating.
Yeah. How much time did you put into making this movie? I'm talking about from beginning to end, you know what I'm saying? Hours spent on set, you know what I'm saying? What would a typical work day look like?
Well, I'll give you a general overview. So we started writing it, and because I came up with the story, and me and my friend Tyler Landers, who actually acts in the film, we co-wrote it together, and we started writing in July of 2011. We got everything written by September, by Labor Day weekend. I had it all written before I went to Las Vegas, which was a good time. And and whenever we came back, we had our location scouted by October, and everybody casted. And then I think the first week of October we started filming. Okay. So, and then we shot on weekends. Some days we would shoot a day scene, and then we'd shoot a night scene, so we double up. And then we did that all the way through November. Then we wrapped, at least I thought we wrapped. And then that winter my plan was to edit. And we put it in the editor, got everything rough cutted to see what the time was going to be. Ended up being 50 minutes. And I went, oh, crap. So there was a road trip scene that we had tossed out. So we went ahead and put that back in. We filmed that. And then then after that, we put that segment in. We showed it in Vincent's, Indiana. We did a focus group showing, passed out surveys to people, see what they thought of the film. They said they wanted to know more about the family of 5 who's originally murdered in the house. And so we decided we were going to shoot that scene. So we casted for that, got that knocked out, and then we showed it in Evansville, Indiana, 2013. And then we decided we were going to try film festivals. Spent 14 trying to do film festivals. Didn't get into a single one, which was very disheartening. Didn't know really what to do as far as movies, because back in 2013, 2014, there wasn't really a lot of prevalent information, which is kind of crazy to think in 6 years' time, so much has changed.
Yeah.
But found out about the American film market in 2015, and I went to it in I think it was 2015 when we went to that. We showed it twice in Santa Monica. Then we ended up getting a distribution deal and finally came out in 2017 on DVD and digital, and then 2019 on Blu-ray. So it's been a journey for Unlisted Owner for sure. And for people who don't know about Unlisted Owners, let me give a quick synopsis. The movie's about a group of friends that hear about a family that's been murdered in a house about a mile away from where they're camping at, and through a series of peer pressure and terrible decisions, they decide to break into the house and investigate. And after they hear the killer's been caught, and that's when all the fun happens, not giving too much away.
Oh, yeah. Now, like I said, it's just... like I said, it's crazy because, when you're passionate about something, because, it's something I always see. I'm always, I follow you on Instagram and on Facebook and stuff like that. And like I said, with this whole Corona thing going on, you're not nobody can do anything right now. You know what I'm saying? But normally I always see you at all these festivals and, conventions, promoting, out there working, putting in the legwork, because a lot of times that's what it takes. It takes boots on the ground, you making these moves, you chasing down these people, and look, everyone check this out. You know what I'm saying? Because as a podcaster, it's what I do all the time. You know what I'm saying? I'm always promoting. I'm always, this and this and this, and just, doing this song and dance for everybody so I get a little bit of notice. And that's what the work comes in that nobody sees. You know what I'm saying? That's the work nobody ever understands or gets, because if you are not out there being active, if you're not out there showing your stuff, you can't just rely on it hopefully taking off. If you're not out there promoting and showing off your product, you will never go nowhere. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's and that's where people get, turned off. That's where people don't want, they're like, it's not, getting the response I want. And just like you said, having thick skin, it's just, if you're not out there trying to hustle and get this thing done, you know what I'm saying? And make this happen, it never will. What's the hardest thing about always going on the road and just making sure that people are hearing you?
Yeah, it's because, especially in today's world, everybody's competing for eyeballs. It's not like back when we grew up, whenever it was like, okay, if you had, for me, I had cable TV, I had 31 channels, and, and it's like now, not only are you competing, if your film's on Amazon or, in a store somewhere, not only are you competing against all those other movies, you're competing against people who are on their cell phones, watching YouTube videos, on Facebook all the time. Some people, that's where they find their entertainment now, is looking at, videos on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just really hard to get someone to, you're basically trying to convince somebody to take, 74 minutes out of their day, out of their life to watch your film. And it's just very hard to convince people, you're an unknown director and writer. This is your debut film. They haven't heard of it, but you have to convince them to just give it a shot, And that's probably the hardest part and the trickiest part about it. And that's where, you just got to try to do your best to you know, you got to sell yourself with your product and try to get, you know, people to want to check it out. And that's probably like I said, the most difficult part about it. But it's also I mean, to me, it's a lot of fun because I like the challenge of seeing, you know, hey, can I get these, you know, can I convince this person to check this out? And that's just, you know, I always like that challenge to see what I can do. And, you know, it's amazing, like the outcome, because we made the top 10 on Amazon for horror DVD in 2017 when the movie first came out.
Yeah.
And it was just unbelievable because we were going up against Walking Dead season 7 had just came out, American Horror Story season 6 had just came out, and you know, all these great titles are on Amazon, and we're right there in the top 10 with them. I mean, I was just blown away. I think 47 Meters Down was on the list with us. I mean, it was just wild to see Unlisted Owner up on the list on the Amazon charts like that. It was just such a cool moment for me.
Yeah, that could definitely be a cool moment. That's like, you know, the satisfaction that you get when you know, reach a point where you're just like, we're really doing this, you know what I'm saying? I can only imagine like the high you get from that, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, are we serious? Is this shit really happening? And you know, in like say in real life and things like that, I always tell people, it's like, and you know, it's what I always try to get across to my audience, that is what's worth it. That's why you do it. That's why you struggle and have these struggles in your life to make shit happen. You know what I'm saying? Constantly. It's like, all I want is everyone to succeed. And the only way you can succeed is by putting in the hard work.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And, you know, like I said, just putting on a movie, putting on a whole spectacle of what you're doing is difficult because you're trying to wrangle people together, get everyone on schedule, making sure people show up and making sure people doing their job. No one's goofing off or, you know, like fucking up. And it's, like I said, it's amazing to me that, you know, all it takes is an idea. All it takes is a spark to be like, this is my passion. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to make it fucking happen. You know, and like I said, it's very inspiring to me to want to do something more. You know what I'm saying? For those who want to, you know, let's say, who wants to start a film, write a film, direct a film, what would be the path and direction you would push somebody into?
Well, if you have an idea, and I mean, like I did, you know, Unlisted Owner started with just one scene in the movie, which involves an attic space, which I'm not going to give away, but I had that idea in my head, and okay, I'm like, all right, so I had this cool sequence in my head of what the scene would look like. Okay, how do we get there, and what happens afterwards, you know? So then I just kind of started writing, making up a story in my head of what would happen for them to get to that point. And then once we've reached that point, what happens after? So my advice to anybody who wants to get started in making a film, especially if you want to do the like, you know, you're not taking someone else's idea, but you're gonna use your own idea, is just write it. Research on proper script format and just go for it. Final Draft is a great program to be able to write your first screenplay. It costs a little bit. I think there are some free ones, but Final Draft is an excellent program. It's what I use on my scripts now. Back then, I didn't have that, and the script looked like crap, you know, as far as the format goes. But just go out there, research Final Draft, watch YouTube tutorials on how to actually, what's the correct format, and start writing. And it's amazing, like, what you'll come up with. And also, you know, if you don't want to jump in right off the bat on getting Final Draft and stuff, I mean, I also do this too. Just write an outline. Just write, like, you know, a 3-page story or 4, however long you want to make your story. Just write a story on your, you know, Microsoft Word or whatever, and then take that and translate that into Final Draft later. I mean, and that's a great way to do it too. Just, you know, as you're writing, you can read through it and you come up with ideas in your head as you go. But writing is the first step for sure, as far as going through the process of making your first film.
There we go. You guys hear it right there. That's what it takes. Because like I said, you know, you start with an idea and make it happen. Now I want to segue into the doors that opened for you as you did this movie. What are the things that have opened up to you? Because I know you just recently got an IDBM and all that stuff. And so, you know, I definitely want to talk about all that.
Yeah. It's been pretty wild, like whenever I made the film, because you can actually Google me, which is it still blows my mind. Like you type in Jed Bryan on Google, and there's my photo, and it says I'm an actor, and I think it says I'm a director too, and stuff. And it's just wild. Like when you type it in the search bar, there's my picture. It's like it's still I just can't believe that. And it's a pretty crazy experience. I had people, message the Unlisted Owner Facebook page, wanting, signed posters and, T-shirts and all kinds of wild stuff. And it's just, it's so surreal to think about that. I mean, people recognize me out in public now. And it's just, it's weird, when you're younger, you always dream of having that type of recognition of, of making something and either being a sports athlete or a movie star or anything like that. But it's just cool for me because it's like I feel like it's very weird because it's like I feel like I made a movie. And it's just, it doesn't seem real like all this other stuff is, came along with it. But it's so cool because I've met so many great people since I made the movie. If I wouldn't have made the movie, I wouldn't have met you because I know you through, Dave.
Yeah.
Dave, back whenever he did the Dave's Pop Culture podcast, which he still has on YouTube and stuff. Yeah. Shout out to Dave. But I mean, it's introduced me to so many great people. I mean, Paranormal Pat. All you guys have been so supportive of, Unlisted Owner. Just amazing, like all the doors that have opened. I mean, I have filmmaker friends in LA now, and which is kind of crazy to think about because it's like, I didn't even know anybody from California, a few years ago, and now it's like I have friends all over the U.S., all over the world now because of this film, and there's fans of it. And I mean, I did a podcast one time out of the U.K., and this girl who interviewed me was talking like fan theories on Unlisted Owner, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's people out there actually have fan theories about what actually is going on with the movie. So it's a surreal experience. And if I hadn't have taken the step to actually go out there and do it, none of this would have happened. I would have just been some guy in a small town, in Illinois. And now it's like, I'm out there for the world, to know, and, Unlisted Owners out there for the world to see. And it's just such a cool, thing to know that it's out there.
See, all it took was an idea. All it took was an image, and you literally opened the door to the world. And like I said, it's just crazy to hear. It's beautiful to see because, like I said, if you didn't have the passion to do this, it would have never happened. But then now that it happened and all these doors open for me, and just like you said, people are making fan theories, and it's like I said, this is what I want people to do. Like I said, you don't have to specifically make movies. You don't have to specifically do anything. But the thing is if you're chasing what you want to do and you want to make this shit happen, like I said, anybody can do. I'm not saying anybody can make a movie, but I'm saying is anybody can do whatever they want to do because that's what you did. I wanted to do this. I'm doing this. I'm making this fucking happen, and this is what it's turning out to be. Like I said, I know you recently just did a movie, and it's like, who the fuck would, like you said, I made my movie, now I'm in another movie, and now I'm on IDBM. And it's just those steps that take to reach that next level. And as you keep chasing your dreams and you keep reaching that next level, where do you see you in the next few years of, after Unlisted Owner and trying to get onto the next project?
Well, speaking of next projects, I actually have acted in a few projects between, I guess it had been 2 years ago and this year, which only one has came out so far. During quarantine, ACM Films out of Los Angeles hit me up to do. They were doing like an Invasion of the Body Snatchers type YouTube little short, and I actually got to be in it with my wife and my son who just turned 2, and it was such a cool moment for me to be able to do that. But if you guys want to check it out, it's called Outbreak. If you type in ACM Films Outbreak, it should pop up on YouTube. And then I was also in another film that had Malcolm McDowell from Clockwork Orange. He voices a talking jack-o'-lantern in this movie, and I was in just a short little scene, but it was such a cool moment to me to know like there's Malcolm McDowell's character, and I'm in the same scene with him. But probably one of the neatest things that's upcoming is there's a project called 13 Slaves Till Christmas. or it's X/Mass
Yeah.
if you want to look it up. But filmmaker by the name of PJ Starks hit me up about doing a Christmas horror anthology, and it's basically like 13 stories of. I think he kind of based it off of the song, there'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glory of Christmas is long, long ago. So the scary ghost stories parts kind of intrigued him. So I actually wrote my own sequence for that and directed it, and we shot that in February, so right before all the coronavirus stuff happened. So we were able to get ours wrapped. Everybody else has been delayed, so we're just kind of waiting to see what happens with that. We were hoping for maybe a release this year, but who knows with the whole virus thing if it's going to be delayed. But mine involves a Christmas clown. That's all I'm going to give away right now.
Okay.
But I'm pretty excited for everyone to see it. We got a rough edit done. We're still working on like the tweaks and stuff, but I mean, like I said earlier, if I wouldn't have made my first film, there's no way I would have been able to do that. I mean, I went to Days of the Dead HorrorCon in Louisville, Kentucky, and did my first, filmmaker panel, which was awesome to have people, that are your peers that are at the, wanting to know advice on, your experience as a filmmaker and stuff. And it's just, it's still surreal to me.
No, I can only imagine. It's just crazy. You know what I'm saying? Just to hear, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because I mean, where I'm located, I'm an hour and a half is the closest mall to me. I'm in the middle. 35 minutes to the closest movie theater for me. So I mean, where I'm at, I'm in a very small town. Well, if you take away our prison, we're about 900 people, and it really shows that you don't have to be in LA, you don't have to be in Atlanta or anywhere to be able to make a great film, a film in general. And you just, if you have friends that are dedicated, and that's the key, surround yourself with people who are dedicated and are going to be there, because it's not like if you start a band and you're going to be playing some shows and your drummer quits, it's not like, we'll just hire another drummer. If you're making a movie, you're halfway through shooting, your main actor quits, not only do you have to keep shooting your film, but you have to reshoot all that stuff you previously shot or rewrite your script. So, I mean, you got to make sure you surround yourself with dedicated people and good people that are easy to work with.
That's it. The power of the internet, you know what I'm saying? And it's just so fucking, it's like you said, it's everywhere around the world. You do not need to be where the things are. You know what I'm saying? Everything can be done from where you're at. You can get exposure from where you're at. You can literally do everything you promote from your own house, and you ain't never gotta. Yeah, I'm not saying you ain't never gotta, but you know what I'm saying. The majority of times, you can do what you want to do where you're at, and that's the crazy thing about it, because all it takes is an upload, a download, a fucking a reload. Fuck.
Email. Yeah, I mean, it's real easy just to be able to get to get out there anymore, to be able to make something and put it out there for people. But like I said before, you got to sell yourself. You can't just and that's one thing I noticed with a lot of indie filmmakers is they'll sign a distribution deal and then they'll expect their distributor to be the one that's going to go out there and, promote for them. But it doesn't work that way. I mean, for Unlisted Owner, all the interviews and almost all the reviews, was my legwork of, getting out there and, talking to people and trying to say, hey, sending out emails, which, there's a lot of emails I never got a response back from. And, you just got to look at it,